All right. Hi, everyone. I'm going to try to do this in one take. I want to get through a poem from the late Romantic era, and I'm going to try and talk a little faster so that it's not as long of a video as it could be. So, right to it. The point of this is to introduce one last poem from the Romantic era. This is the late Romantic era, and I'm not going to offer a whole lot more other than a read through and some explanation as to what the main plot line is, and talk a little bit about this genre of poem, which is called a dramatic monologue, and also um, talk a little bit about like the psychological fascination that was emerging towards the end of the late Romantic era. And what I mean by that is this interest in human psychology. We know that the Romantics wanted to explore the depths of human feeling and all of these maybe even the dark recesses of the human soul. Um, and well, Robert Browning definitely goes deep into that in his dramatic monologues. A dramatic monologue is what you think. It's basically a poem told from the point of view of a fictional character. So this is a poem that's a little bit of a mystery in terms of like there is some action that's unfolding in the poem, and at the start of the poem we don't really know what's going on. There's a big climax, and and then we realize who we're dealing with. The speaker is somebody that is got some issues, shall we say. You'll find out about that. Brace yourselves if you are a little squeamish about murder. Spoiler alert. Um, now, it's important then to use the term speaker and not Robert Browning when discussing this poem, because this is not necessarily Robert Browning at all. The way that Wordsworth might kind of be the voice of the speaker in his poems, he is clearly, Robert Browning in this poem is clearly trying to inhabit the psychology of an unsavory or villainous, sociopathic type of character. So there's a lot of suspense here, and that's something that I'll point out along the way. Let's dive right in here. And I've got a little bit of a treat for you. Um, I will turn the sound off because I don't want it to get in the way of my. You'll notice this is a film by Dylan Charles. He's graduated from Storm King a while back, and he wanted to do a video of Porphyria's lover, and he did quite a good job of that. So we'll watch this along with our reading of the poem. The poem begins with really, like you might have heard that cliche, it was a dark and stormy night. Well, this was one of the original, it was a dark and stormy night. He doesn't say it exactly like that. He says, the rain set in early tonight. The sullen wind was soon awake. Notice how he's personifying elements of nature. This is also called pathetic fallacy. A pathetic fallacy is, let's see, those are I'm going to make a new note here. All right. Pathetic fallacy, just to spell it out there for you. It's when, well, we have it in Ode to the West Wind, and I might have called it an apostrophe also. They're pretty much the same thing. It's when you give human characteristics to elements of nature. It's not necessarily a scientific way of talking about nature, but it does represent and help serve to express the intensity of nature, as if nature was being hateful that night. It's a kind of a bad omen. It was so windy and so intensely stormy that the elm tops were broken apart. And the speaker says, "I listened with heart fit to break." So he's waiting, and it's a dark night, and then she comes in. And who is she? Well, when glided in, Porphyria, straight she shut the cold out and the storm, and kneeled and made the cheerless grate blaze up and all the cottage warm. So they did a really nice job here in this fireplace scene. This is where Mr. G lives nowadays. That's the fireplace there in the Art Center apartment. There's Porphyria. She's come in. She could be a little bit more, her clothes could be more stormed up from traveling in the rain. But okay, and then here we see the speaker eyeing Porphyria, and there's a little tone of the ominous, and here comes the cheerless grate. Again, a lot of personifying happening. That meaning the fireplace was not lit, or at least it was not really blazing that hot. And she kneeled and sort of stoked a fire, and then the flames got bigger. This is very symbolic. Okay, when the fire goes from kind of smoldering or nothing at all to blazing up, what do you think that might mean? Could be a stirring of emotions of some kind. There's a lot of ways you can take that. So let's go into lines 9 through 20. So which done, after she started the fire up again and sort of warmed up, got dried off, took off her coat, withdrew the dripping coat and shawl, and laid her soiled gloves by, untied her hat, and let the damp hair fall. And last she sat down by my side and called me. So she's making herself comfortable. And it's interesting. He reveals when no voice replied. So as in, she calls out to him and he doesn't say anything. So we get a little bit of this dramatized here in the film. He doesn't say anything and he just kind of sits there. We don't know what's going on with him. All right, and there we have a great. That's really symbolically done here. I like that because the passions perhaps are rising, the fire is warming, and we don't know what's going to happen. When no voice replied, she put my arm about her waist and made her smooth white shoulder bare, and all her yellow hair displaced, and stooping made my cheek lie there, and spread o'er all her yellow hair, murmuring how she loved me. Okay, so now the plot thickens. And by the way, this is the longest poem we've read so far. It's almost like a short story. That's the longest poem we've read so far, and you can see why, because there's a story unfolding here. There's a lot of questions. What's going on between them? Are they married? Are they not married? Is this some kind of affair that's going on? Why is he not talking? Why is there this ominous setting happening? What is revealed gradually as we go along? Is he holding some kind of grudge? Let's read on. And then we have a dash, and that dash right here reveals that he's about to give a little more information about who this she is. And he describes it very interesting. Too weak for all her heart's endeavor. Okay, endeavor means like when you're attempting to do something, when you've got a project, or when you're trying to accomplish something. So what is her heart's endeavor? We don't know exactly. But he says something about how she's too weak, and even though her heart wants to, she is too weak to set her heart's struggling passion free from pride and vainer ties to sever, and give herself to me forever. Vainer ties, vanity, is the word that is derived from vain. pride, vanity. For some reason, he thinks that pride and her vanity has kept her from cutting to dissever certain ties. So I think he is talking about, the speaker's talking about, this might be a love triangle thing happening here. She might perhaps be involved with somebody else. Maybe she's married, um, and she's unable to cut herself off from those ties. Or maybe another reading could be maybe she's unable to cut herself off from the speaker. Again, we get a lot of questions and a lot of mystery here at this point. And then he goes on to say, but passion sometimes would prevail, nor could tonight's gay feast restrain a sudden thought of one so pale for love of her, and all in vain. Let's look at that. So he's revealing to us that passion is going to prevail. And even though tonight's feast, okay, I guess they're going to have dinner or whatnot, gay feast, meaning it's supposed to be festive or happy, lighthearted, but that did not restrain a sudden thought of one so pale for love of her, and all in vain. So he is so pale. It reminds me, perhaps this is an allusion to the knight at arms, palely loitering. Is he making a reference here? I think so. What might that reference mean? That's a good point of discussion. But he is palely in love with her, and he's got a sudden thought, and passion's going to prevail. And it's not a happy passion, okay? Because the gay feast couldn't restrain this one passion that prevails. So something bad's going to happen. So she was come through wind and rain. So pause here. He's reminding us again of the setting and that ominous, scene of the wind and the storm and the darkness. Let's look at some of the imagery going on here. Here is when I think the director has the idea of the pale thought. Okay, I'm sorry, is that the word, the right, let me go back. Sorry about this. Not the pale, the thought of, yeah, it is a pale thought, a sudden thought of one so pale. So he's got an idea here, and you can see that on the look on his face, okay? He is in a different state of mind than she is, okay? And so what is that pale thought that's brewing? Is he going to, what's he going to do next? Again, the suspense here is very well displayed. And here we see something happening. Okay, I'm going to pause right here. I know it's a little creepy, but it's kind of supposed to be. Hold on a second. I'm going to try to pause this. All right. So where are we then? So let's look at the next bit here. Be sure I looked up at her eyes, happy and proud. At least I knew Porphyria worshipped me. Surprise made my heart swell, and still it grew while I debated what to do. That moment she was mine, mine fair, perfectly pure and good. So this is a moment that he is recognizing that he has her affection. He says she worships me. My heart swelled, as in it grew. My passion, my desire, all of these things are ignited think back about the fire. That moment she was mine, mine, fair, perfectly pure and good. I found a thing to do, and all her heart, and all her hair, and one long string I wound 3 times her little throat around, and strangled her. No pain felt she. I'm quite sure she felt no pain. So they did an okay job of depicting this. It's not that brutal, but yes, see, there's the winding the hair around her neck. Why is he strangling her? What's the motive? Okay, obviously he is insane. Enough has been revealed by now that he has got something going on, and he's consumed with something that is irrational. It's powerful. And if you want to look at weird, twisted motives, perhaps he is wishing to try to preserve this moment in which he knows that that he has her forever, and that by killing her, perhaps he immortalizes this moment. It's a little twisted, but that's what the dark avenues being explored here. And here we have a beautiful simile, even though it's grotesque in a way. As a shut bud that holds a bee, I warily oped her lids again, laughed the blue eyes without a stain. So something about the eyes remain clear as he opens them up again. And I untightened next the tress, okay, the hair that he had used to strangle her about her neck. Her cheek once more blushed bright beneath my burning kiss. So he kisses her as she lies there newly dead. I propped up her head as before. Let's play and see what we can see here. Only this time my shoulder bore her head, which droops upon it still. There he's opening her eyes. The smiling, rosy little head, so glad it has its utmost will. Let's look at that line. Like, he thinks that she really wanted this, to be with him, and he did what she couldn't do for herself, to dissever the ties, the vainer ties, perhaps, maybe, by killing her, he has freed her from whatever has come between them, whether it's like some sort of love triangle or something like that. So I think that's what he means by so glad her heart or her head has its utmost will, and all it scorned at once is fled, and I its love am gained still. Porphyria's love, she guessed not how her darling one wish would be heard. Surprise! Here's your wish. I'm going to kill you. Twisted, but I think we have to kind of get into that weird mindset. And then here's the creepy finishing few lines. And thus we sit together now, and all night long we have not stirred, and yet God has not said a word. You wonder if there's some pang of conscience, if he's wondering if God has witnessed this event. And there you have the strange. You feel free to go back and watch this video again. It's beautifully shot. And anyway, so I think that's a great little rundown of the plot and the poem, and I'll share this with you, the slideshow, that we can do some reading and more analysis. And the big question that I like to bring up is, what clues do we get along the way about the mental state of the speaker? How does the mystery unfold from line to line as we read the poem and then realize, oh no, what are we dealing with here? All right, hope you enjoyed, and I will see you guys soon. Bye.